Just thank you so much for joining us live wherever you're tuned in from. We're so grateful that you made the time to come and join us live on this wonderful show. This is hashtag Youth Dialogue 2020, where it's a partnership with Aydepi, that's the African Young Dreamers Empowerment Program, in conjunction with Immigrant Guide. These are organizations based here in Federal Way, Washington, Seattle. They are organizations that deal with youth and that advocate for the rights of the youth here in Washington State. So with me on the show, to my right is my amazing Fiona Njeri Okech. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's so good to see you here. Miss Fiona Okech is a university undergraduate student at the Washington State University, where she is pursuing an undergrad in chemical engineering, and that's not only it. She's also a youth director of Aydepi. She is such a high flyer and a young achiever. She's been in the States for the last 2 years, and in those 2 years she has won numerous scholarships awards for her tuition fee, and additionally she's also won other awards, chief of them being the Washington Seal of Belletrisy. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Looking ever so radiant.
You too.
Thank you so much. And joining us on the other side of the screen is my good friend, Reverend Martin Degwa. He is definitely someone that we who live here in Seattle, we know him quite well. Reverend Martin Degwa, believe it or not, has been active in ministry over the last 24 years, both in Kenya and here in the United States. Reverend Martin is married to his amazing wife, Mrs. Janelle Degwa, and they have 2 kids, Nation and Madeo. When he is not pastoring, he actively works in community health case management, disease interventionist, and he's also worked as a research study assistant in HIV/AIDS, hepatitis C, and behavioral change studies, including mental health, substance abuse, and chemical dependency. Pastor Martin has actually worked in various capacities both in King County and Seattle, and it's an absolute pleasure, sir, to have you on set today. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, so it's amazing how when I think of you, Pastor Martin, I think of you as this great teacher of the word, because that's what I see on Facebook. But none of us, I don't think many people actually know your other side of what you do professionally. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Professionally, I am currently working with a non-for-profit organization in Seattle, but it is housed at the Navos Mental Health Solutions.
Okay.
What I do, again, it depends on who I'm working for. But right now, I am working with community, or pretty much I'll just shoot it straight. We work with communities that are underserved,
Okay.
that may be in need for either mental health, substance abuse, chemical dependency,
Yes.
and also may not have insurance of the money to get those services. We also provide access to HIV and hepatitis C,
Awesome.
testing and counseling and treatment. Yes.
That sounds pretty good. I mean, when you think about, and it's actually very much in line with what we're discussing today, because even as we talk about this Youth Dialogue 2020, when we're addressing mental health and all the psychosocial factors that affect our young people, we can clearly weave it into what you're working on right now. And I know one of the major concerns to us as most people is the fact that immigrants, we have had people who do not actually have access to medical care. And so it's always good for us to know where to go to get this kind of help, right?
Absolutely. And I want to say that immigration status does not feature. So there's no questions on your status. And the second thing is that even if you don't have money or insurance, our insurance kicks in and can cover for your.
Okay, awesome. I'm just going to have you start stand right there, Pastor Martin, and I'll be right back to you within 1 minute. But right now, I just want to turn my attention to Miss Okech. Fiona, you are 19 years old.
Yeah.
And you are such a vibrant young lady.
Thank you.
One of the things that really stands out about you is your confidence when it comes to relating with people. And I know that this is not something that just pops up. It's something that you have worked on over time. But you've been in the country for only 2 years now, in the United States. I want to ask you, how was it transitioning for you as a youth in this country, as an immigrant youth in this country?
For my experience, it has pretty much been challenging, but at the same time, it was such a wonderful experience. I was from Kenya, and I traveled here to meet my mom, and first challenges that I faced was the culture shock, especially coming to study here, and I completely just went in 12th grade.
Wow.
So it was just 1 year of my high school, and then I transitioned to university. So it was very much challenging. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what resources that I could get, and what school that I wanted to. So it was definitely challenging, but I am thankful for the resources that I got, and I am thankful for my school and my mom too. She's really supportive, and I was able to make it. So when I look back at it, I believe that I really had a wonderful time, and I wouldn't change it otherwise.
Oh, that is really good. At this point, viewers, we want to remind you that you can actually text us live. We want to hear what you have to say. And our text line is 253-332-2146. Again, that is 253-332-2146. Remember, this is a text-only number. So please text us your comments, your questions, your concerns to that number. We'll also put it down below on the screen, and you can send us what you think or whatever questions you have, then we'll be able to address it as we go on. Also, I'd like to mention that at this point, we are also going to add on 2 panelists as the show proceeds. Reason being that we have had technical hitches and we're really sorry that it took us a while to put this together. But I'm just going to go right ahead. Pastor Martin,
Yes.
you know, one thing is for sure that whenever we hear the term mental health and therapy, it's usually a very kind of a touchy area that people that really don't want to talk about, right?
Right.
I just want to ask you, what is it in your opinion that is the main reason as to why immigrants are reluctant in seeking help?
I probably want to say, first off, is the stigma that is associated with mental health.
Yes.
And that comes from our background, how we were raised up. Mental health was always seen as stigmatizing,
Yes.
and was never talked about except in harsh tones. So a lot of people are afraid of being identified
Yes.
as people dealing with mental health because they are afraid of how people will respond to them. The second thing I think is the complicated healthcare system.
Okay.
Most people don't know how to navigate it.
Yes.
Mostly when people are needing help, the last thing they need is a complicated healthcare system.
I agree.
And so that is why it's so important for forums like this
Yes.
and other nonprofit agencies out there
Yes.
which simplify the process.
Yes.
And so that thing that I would like to mention is the immigration status. People are not sure how that affects when they go out to seek for help,
Yes.
and maybe they are not documented. and they are giving out their information, they don't know the recourse, what's going to happen after I give out my information out there and I'm undocumented.
Absolutely.
And so those are the main three things that I have personally experienced
Yes.
and seen as reasons why a lot of people, especially in our community, makes it harder or creates barriers
Yes.
from seeking help or even discussing mental health in their midst. Yes.
If I can quickly just piggyback on that point, how then can we break these barriers? You've mentioned stigma, you've mentioned being undocumented. What, in your opinion, in your professional opinion, what can we do to actually bridge the barriers to
First of all, thank you so much.
to seek help?
First of all, information.
Yes.
Right information and education. And then, of course, we need to start talking about it. Open up conversations and dialogues. Destigmatize mental health.
Absolutely.
Normalize it.
Yes.
And let people know that it's okay,
Yes.
that there's nothing wrong. You are not broken. You are not possessed by devils.
Yes.
That you are dealing with a challenge just like any other social or health challenge.
Yes.
So information is so important, and right information.
And right information for that. Yeah.
Yes, I think information changes the whole conversation
Absolutely.
because people know what to do and where to go.
Okay.
And then we must have intentional support system where people know how to support folks who are dealing with mental health or other co-occurring factors like substance abuse or chemical dependency. We need to create a community that is adequately informed and that is ready and willing and able
Yes.
to help when it is necessary.
Yes, absolutely. I really like what you say, a community that is ready and willing and able to help when necessary. Because one of the things that really break my heart is how we move to the United States and we become very individualistic. It's just me, myself, and I, me, my family, and I don't
Right.
care about anybody else. At this point, I'm just going to jump over quickly to Miss Fiona here. Miss Fiona, you are currently a freshman, and you will be in your second year come September this year, right?
Yes.
I know, I was once a freshman many years back. Don't ask me my age.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that freshman year is the most craziest years that any young person can go through in university, and especially if you're not grounded. And there's so many other factors like peer pressure that young people have to battle with. As a freshman, as a current freshman, I'd like you to just address your first year. How was it for you, mentally, emotionally, physically, you name it?
Okay. My experience as a freshman, I will say it was confusing. That is my first experience because I had absolutely no idea what university that I wanted to go to. And so I had to ask around, do my own research on which university was the best and the time period to apply for a good university and for you to get in was pretty short.
Okay.
So it was really challenging during that time. And when I joined my freshman year, these emotions came rushing through me. I have been in boarding school when I was in Kenya, so
Yes.
I learned to be independent since I was a young girl. But I do say when you go to university, there's nobody to look out for you.
Okay.
It's just you and that's it. So the way how here we have our parents who look after us, who tell us don't do this, don't do that. Where we have our teachers who tell us that. When you go to college, no one is there for you to look up to or talk to when you have a problem.
Yes.
It's much difficult for you to seek for a assistance. So I bet that is where like peer pressure comes in.
Yes.
Because you have no one to tell you this is wrong, you should stop. And you want to fit in so much
Yes.
that you decide to follow the friends that are not good for you.
Okay.
And that's where we get the peer pressure, we get students who don't concentrate in their studies
Yes.
and end up, on the wrong track. And at the end of the day, they end up dropping out from school. It's not because they went to university to joke around.
Yes.
It's just because there's no guidance or there's no proper guidance from anybody for you to guide you to the right path. And I think that is one of the challenges that I faced as a freshman.
Oh, that sounds actually good. I know that one thing that we've talked about behind the scenes over the last few months is the peer pressure issue, and it's a big deal in campus, right? But I just want to point out something that we talked about some time back on the question of representation in campus, because I can only think about it in the sense that you are in a new school, you're in a new environment, you are with people from all walks of life, and then you suddenly feel like you don't have the support system that you were used to having back at home. And that is definitely something that is so hard for somebody to unpack their emotions, right? You don't know what to label it, right? I just want to talk about the counseling sessions that you have in school. I'm sure you guys have a school counselor. And I know this is a touchy subject, but I would like you to address the fact whether do you feel represented in school? Do you feel well taken care of in terms of the counselor? Do you think the counselor understands you as an immigrant youth?
I will say yes and no. Because in school there are counselors, yes. There is a very stable system, medical system, where you go to get counseling and all that medical stuff. But the problem is we are opted to seek assistance from another person from a different race or from a different nationality or culture. So when you go to talk about your issues, they may not understand you from where you come from as a culture. For example, I personally did have an issue on that, and when I went to seek counseling, they were like, "Oh, is that what you go through in Africa?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, wow." So it's
You
something.
didn't see that coming.
I did not see that coming because we get support system from foreign people instead of getting help from our community. And as in a matter of mental health in our school, statistically, African American students are much lower than Caucasian students. So an issue, especially with Africans, an issue that we might have together may not be dealt with in much higher importance.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding, because we are list number. We are not like a higher population in the school.
Wow.
So it is dealt as an African problem rather than a whole school problem. So you get resources from African students. It's really, really low and really, really not effective. So that is one of the issues that one can face and is facing right now when you go to university.
Wow, that's a complete shocker.
I know.
I honestly did not even see that coming. That, seriously, that, based on the fact that she's in the university, she said clearly that when it comes to statistics, students of African descent do not have access to the same, in terms of support when they're having issues as compared to Caucasian students. So in the sense that whenever one of the African students has an issue that they're facing, it's dealt as an African issue. And whenever a Caucasian student is going through something and it's reported to the necessary people, then it's dealt with as a school problem. And I honestly think that really breaks my heart, because it goes to show that the support system in the school system at the university is definitely not up to par. And I'm sure you have other friends from other colleges and other universities. Is this a common thing in other colleges too?
I feel like it is a common thing.
So it's something that comes up a lot when you guys are having conversations.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So Pastor Martin,
Yes.
I would like you to chime in a bit on this. I'm sure you've heard what our amazing girl here just said right now. And when you think about misrepresentation of our African students in universities and campuses, what, in your opinion, would you say, how would we provide a support system for our young people? Because if at all that when they're in school, they go asking for help, but they don't get the help that they need, how then can we provide a strong support system when they come home for the holidays?
Thank you very much. I want to mention something here first, that the models of counseling, prevention, and education sometimes are very broken.
Yes.
They are archaic in the sense that they were developed many years ago,
Yes.
and they have not been reviewed to reflect the kind of lifestyle
Yes.
with its challenges
Uh-huh.
that the young folks are facing in colleges and campuses.
Absolutely.
And so the approach and the models were never designed with Africans in mind.
Wow.
It was designed for
Yes.
and by
Yes.
the majority.
Yes.
And so it always works when it is implemented towards the majority
Yes.
by the majority.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That means when you try to use the same model
Yes.
on Africans,
Uh-huh.
for whom the model was not designed to cater for, then it fails to actually capture and reflect what is going on in their lives.
Okay.
So that is one thing. So we are challenging
Yes.
academic institutions
Yes.
and scholars
Yes.
to begin to review the models
Absolutely.
and to begin to be aware that Africans, or let's say the immigrants,
Yes.
is a concept that is here to stay.
Absolutely.
And that might as well begin to come up with models and strategies.
Yes.
If I have a minute, I want to mention something we call cultural humility.
Please go ahead.
Cultural humility in the modern counseling and prevention education
Uh-huh.
is the ability to adopt a stance which is other-oriented.
Uh-huh.
That means you are willing to give up what you think you know about the other person,
Yes.
and you are ready to receive and learn from them
Absolutely.
based on what that other person has determined is their interpretation of their experience.
Wow.
So our approaches and our models
Yes.
must come off the cultural humility as opposed to cultural competence.
Yes.
We know the Africans and how they think. So that's an African problem. That is a person coming from what they think, the high pedestal of cultural competence,
Yes.
thinking that they have mastered the other person's culture and interpreting the other person's experience.
Yes.
So what I think we need to do now is to increase our visibility
Yes.
and our presence in the institutions of higher learning.
Yes.
I think, and encourage our students
Yes.
to step up and advocate and make their voices to be heard,
Yes.
And then we need to be able to bring in representation.
Yes.
First of all, it is visible.
Uh-huh.
Our African students, if I may say that,
Yes.
should be able to know where their representation is
Good.
in the sense of the services that they are seeking. They should be able to know, if I walk through this door,
Yes.
I will find this kind of a service.
Absolutely.
And that service should also be not just accessible,
Yes.
but also effective. In the sense that they should be able to provide me with the right information. Because I don't want to be taken around if I'm looking for help.
Yes.
A one-stop, or what we call a wraparound.
A wraparound. Uh-huh.
Yes, so I can walk in there, I can come out with either referrals
Yes.
or the actual stops where I can get the services that I'm looking for.
Amazing. Yes.
So representation is key.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. That is really, really spot on. I really thank you for that because you brought out some key pertinent issues that we can actually apply. And as you've heard Reverend Martin encouraging you, key of the factors that probably you should put into consideration is advocacy, advocating for your rights at campus level. So it's definitely something that, it's all about maybe getting together in your student capacities and then formulating a game plan on how you can go about that. That's such a powerful point out that he made, because I strongly believe that no one can really help you fight for your rights like you can. When you look at all the activists that advocate for different issues, they must first feel so strongly about something so that they're able to communicate about it to somebody else and make them actually believe. Like when you think of a salesman, a good salesman will first know their product. They will own the product, and then they'll come and pitch the product to you and sell it to you. And chances are, if they really know their product, chances are you will definitely buy it. So it's just a quick it's a good point out to just encourage the students out there, if you're watching us, that let's begin, like we've just begun having this conversation, continue talking about it and looking for creative ways actually to advocate for your rights. Get together in your groups, on your social media platforms, and I believe that this is something that will definitely be well addressed when we do that. At this point, I just want to remind you that we're coming live to you from Federal, Washington, and this is #Youth Dialogue 2020 by Aydepi, African Young Dreamers Empowerment Program, in conjunction with Immigrant Guide. And currently on set, we have Miss Fiona Jerry Oket. She is 19 years old, the youth director of Aydepi. She is also an undergrad student, freshman at Washington State University, pursuing a degree in chemical engineering. We also have Reverend Martin Degwa. He is the lead pastor at CLC, and he is also very much involved in public health. And at this point, I just want to bring in a new, fresh perspective on mental health. Sir, Reverend Martin, if I can start off with you, you are a family man.
Yes.
And very passionate about your family, because you and I have had conversations in the recent past. As a family man who feels so strongly about family values, we know that for a fact that mental health and all the psychosocial factors when it comes to family units is something that takes on different shapes. And there's so many family dynamics when you think about it that could actually affect mental health. For instance, we've seen blended families, for example, where a man and a woman come in with their children. Like in my case, I'm a single mom, and at some point I will get married. And whoever it is that I'm gonna get married to, it might be a single man, or it might be a man with children or a child. So when you think about the factor of bringing in blended families where these kids have grown separately in separate families, now being brought together under one roof to live with each other and to share a mom or a new dad in the picture, it's definitely something that can affect not only the kids but also the parents involved. You know, when kids have to warm up to this new adjusted settings. How, in your opinion, can we handle these issues right to ensure that those family members that are suffering from mental health are well advocated for? When you think about family dynamics, like I mentioned, blended families, there's also the issue of divorce or single parent households, for example. When you think of a single mom raising their child alone, or a single dad for that matter, how best do you think they can support their children if it comes to that point where they have to deal with mental health issues?
Different family dynamics
Yes.
affect the well-being, not just of our mental health,
Yes.
but our physical health differently.
Yes.
And the family atmosphere is the first environment or primary environment where or which provides an interaction with the brains of little kids as they grow and develop. And so the environment in the family, or the dynamics of family relationship,
Yes.
can have both short-term and long-term effects.
Yes.
Statistics have proven that kids that are raised in strong and stable families,
Yes.
they go on to produce healthy and strong mental health,
Yes.
and they are more likely to succeed than kids that are being raised up in family dynamics that do not provide the necessary support for the brain development. When I say that, I mean stuff like emotional support,
Yes.
psychological support,
Yes.
financial, or just companion.
Yes.
So where a family is lacking in one of those, based either by its composition,
Yes.
when there is friction in the family dynamics, it interferes with the development of the brain of the kids that are being raised up within that family.
Yes.
So it is very, very important for parents to understand
Yes.
that their family, or what they call their home,
Yes.
is a very important and foundational determinant
Yes.
of how their children go on to become mentally. And you cannot talk about family dynamics
Yes.
and not mention the ACEs. That is ACES. It is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experience Study.
Yes.
This is a study that was done by the Casa Permanente
Yes.
and the Center for Disease and Control. And they interviewed kids, or they realized that there was a great link
Yes.
between kids that were growing up in what we call toxic family dynamics
Yeah.
and their social behavior and health and mental health outcomes. That kids that grew up in families that consistently cause them to produce chronic stress,
Yes.
they were more likely to be diagnosed with short life expectancy,
Wow.
chronic diseases including heart disease, engaging in negative and destructive social behavior
Yes.
like risky sex. They were likely to engage in substance abuse and chemical dependency. They were likely to perform badly in school or at work.
Yes.
So they categorized, and I highly recommend these ACEs Just Google it, and you can do a little exam on yourself.
Yes.
And they ask questions like, did you grow up in a family that had sexual abuse, alcohol abuse, emotional abuse, an incarcerated parent?
Wow.
Or did you grow up watching your mom or your dad being attacked violently?
Wow.
And almost close to 100% of kids who grew up in one of those ACEs or one of those trauma, there was visible link to their mental health and their likelihood of developing a chronic disease, as I said,
Yes.
or failing in life.
Okay.
And this is what happens, Maureen, and it's very important for parents to know.
Yes.
Little kids or young kids, their brain is still developing.
Yes.
And when they are chronically subjected to stress, either from fights,
Yes.
abandonment, abuse, or neglect, whatever it is, or incarceration, growing without your parents, whenever they are subjected chronically with that, that stress that was supposed to help them either fight or flee,
Yes.
it begins to interfere. Overproduction of that stress
Wow.
interferes with the development of their brain, their young brain.
Yes.
So it messes the brain architecture, which is the structure and the function of the brain. And then when they grow up to become adults, that interference begins now to manifest and causes them to gravitate towards those behaviors or mental health or whatever it is. So for the parents, it is very important to understand,
Yes.
create the right environment,
Yes.
reduce chronic or toxic stress, and make sure become a buffer so that your children can always be able to release their stress
Absolutely.
and provide self-care for them.
Wow. That is so profound, Reverend Martin. As I first time and a young mom myself, it's definitely something that makes me do a lot of checkups. I mean, check marks.
Yes.
On the system of parenting, and I know we've talked about this before, but I could not agree more that providing the right environment that is not toxic for your child should be every parent's number one priority.
Yes.
Because honestly, we cannot undo these things once they're done in their small brains. And at this point, I want to jump quickly to Miss Fiona here. Miss Fiona, I want to get a little bit up close and personal with you, if that's okay. Because we've talked about this before, and it's something that is very, very needed at this point, Mama, because as you've heard Reverend Martin talk so openly about, the way we bring up our children, I want to just dig a little bit deeper into your way. You're an only child, right? And you've been raised by a single mom who's done exceptionally well. Shout out to you, Miss Betty, who is the president of African Young Dreamers Empowerment Program International. She's a firecracker, a fierce fighter, and we really, really bless the Lord for you, because without you and your passion to actually follow your dreams and actually actively start opening up these conversations, we would not be here right now. So you provided a session and a panel and an opportunity for us to come and talk about this issue. Thank you so much for that. So Miss Fiona, back to you. Tell us about your growing up.
Oh, wow. Okay. My growing up was pretty tough, and it was pretty heartbreaking because I lived with my mom all of my life.
Yes.
But there were certain periods of time where I used to live with my dad too. And my dad was pretty much violent and abused alcohol. And every time I was in boarding school.
Yes.
So for 3 months I used to go to school. And then for the 1 month we used to come back for when school closed.
Yes.
So I remember I didn't want to go home, not because I didn't miss my mom.
Yeah.
It was because every time we went home, my dad could get violent, and then I would get to see like him fighting and abusing my mom and me too. So it's something that I grew up with, and it's something that was really challenging for me to come up, like try to forget about it. And I remember there was a time that I got so depressed, and I even got sick, ulcers, because of stress, and it was such a trying time. My education, like I didn't perform well in school, I had given up, and I was basically just living my life, but in a very sad way. And it wasn't that, if it wasn't for my mom, I honestly don't think I'll be where I am today, sitting here. And it was really challenging, and I remember seeking help from my teachers, my counselors, and I think the most sad part about it is that I try to go seek for help, and I try to talk to my counselors, but the one thing that they kept on telling me is that there are people who are in worse situation than you are, so just live with it, you know? And you're trying to think about it. Okay, people are facing worse things than me, but I'm the one going through them. And it's...
Okay, we're gonna take a short break right now. We will be right back.